A 2021 study published in the journal Nature Communications followed nearly 8,000 adults across almost 3 decades and found that people who consistently slept 6 hours or fewer per night in their 50s and 60s had a 30% higher risk of developing dementia later in life. 30%. Not from genetics, not from a family history they couldn't control, from sleep habits. Habits that felt completely harmless. Habits that felt, in many cases, like just the way life worked. And what made that finding particularly striking wasn't the statistic itself. It was what the researchers uncovered when they dug deeper. In the vast majority of cases, the poor sleep wasn't caused by a disorder. It was caused by specific, correctable mistakes that people were making every single night without realizing the damage being done. In this video, when we're going through 8 sleep mistakes that are quietly eroding your brain health, your memory, and your long-term independence. And research suggests that most adults over 65 are making at least 3 of them right now. Mistake number 3 is something you can fix tonight. No prescription, no special equipment. One decision before bed that sleep scientists say is one of the most powerful interventions available to the aging brain. We will get to it. But we are saving the most dangerous mistake for last, because number 1 is something sitting in millions of medicine cabinets across this country, and the people using it believe wholeheartedly that it is helping them sleep. The research tells a very different story. Before we get into the list, drop a comment right now and tell us, how many hours of sleep are you getting on an average night? And do you wake up feeling genuinely rested? We read every single comment, and you might be surprised how many people are in exactly the same boat as you. Mistake number 8, sleeping with the television on. Let's begin here, because this is one of the most common sleep habits among adults over 65, and it is one of the least discussed threats to deep, restorative sleep. The television feels comforting. The sound is familiar. The light feels safe, especially if you live alone. But what is happening inside your brain during those hours is anything but restful. Research consistently shows that even low-level light exposure during sleep, including the flickering, a variable light that comes from a television screen, disrupts melatonin production in the aging brain. And melatonin is not simply a signal that tells you to feel drowsy. In adults over 60, melatonin also plays a documented role in regulating the glymphatic system, the brain's overnight waste clearance process that flushes out metabolic debris, including the amyloid beta proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. When light interferes with melatonin throughout the night, that clearance process becomes less efficient. Night after night. Year after year. A recent study involving over 900 older adults found that those who slept in rooms with even moderate ambient light had significantly higher rates of metabolic disruption, including elevated insulin resistance and cardiovascular irregularities, compared to those who slept in complete darkness. Both of those markers are independently linked to cognitive decline. The fix tonight is simple. Set a sleep timer on your television so it shuts off within 30 minutes of you falling asleep. Better still, move it out of the bedroom entirely. If silence feels uncomfortable, and for many people who live alone, it does, a white noise machine or a nature sounds app provides audio comfort without a single photon of disruptive light. Mistake number 7, using your phone or tablet in bed. This one appears on almost every sleep list ever published, and yet the specific data for adults over 65 is far more alarming than most people realize. And that specificity is what earns it a place here. It is well established in the medical community that blue light from screens delays melatonin release, typically pushing the onset of true sleep back by 60 to 90 minutes. That is damaging for anyone. But for adults over 65, whose natural melatonin production has already declined by up to 80% compared to young adults. That additional suppression hits a system that has very little reserve left. A large-scale study published in a leading sleep research journal found that older adults who used screens within 60 minutes of their intended bedtime spent significantly less time in slow-wave sleep, the deepest, most restorative stage, compared to those who stopped screen use 90 minutes before bed. Slow-wave sleep is the stage during which the glymphatic system is most active. It is the stage during which memories from the day are consolidated into long-term storage. Every night that screen use cuts into that stage is another night. Your brain's most critical maintenance work goes partially undone. The practical rule: hard cutoff, 60 to 90 minutes before bed. No phone, no tablet, no scrolling. Replace that window with a physical book, gentle stretching, or quiet conversation. The adjustment is uncomfortable for the first 3 to 5 days. After that, most people say they fall asleep faster than they have in years. Mistake number 6: ignoring the warning signs of sleep. Apnea. Sleep apnea in adults over 65 is one of the most underdiagnosed and most brain-damaging conditions in this entire age group, and many people living with it have no idea. According to a 2019 study published in JAMA Neurology, adults with untreated obstructive sleep apnea showed measurably accelerated accumulation of tau protein in the brain compared to matched adults without the condition. Tau is one of the 2 hallmark markers of Alzheimer's disease. The mechanism is direct. Repeated episodes of oxygen deprivation during sleep deprive the brain of the resources it needs to clear waste, maintain neural connections, and regulate inflammation. This happens silently, every night, for years. The warning signs that people routinely dismiss: waking up unrefreshed, no matter how many hours you spend in bed. Frequent nighttime urination, because the brain wakes the body when it cannot get enough oxygen. Morning headaches that nobody can explain. A partner who tells you that you snore loudly or seem to stop breathing momentarily during the night. Take Harold. Harold is 71, a retired electrician from Ohio. He had snored for as long as he could remember. His wife had moved to the guest room years earlier, and Harold had long since accepted that as just the way things were. He was tired every day, but he assumed that was aging. He had low energy, low focus, and what he described as a kind of mental fog that had been building for years. When his daughter finally convinced him to see his doctor and request a sleep study, the results were clear. Harold was experiencing over 40 apnea events per hour. His brain was being starved of oxygen dozens of times every single hour of the night. 6 months after beginning CPAP therapy, Harold told his doctor that the mental fog had lifted. His daughter noticed the difference before he did. He was sharper in conversation. He remembered names. He had the energy to get back into his garden, something he had abandoned 2 years earlier. Same man, same bedroom. The only change was that his brain was finally getting the oxygen it needed while he slept. If you snore heavily, wake unrefreshed consistently, or experience unexplained daytime fatigue, ask your doctor about a sleep study. This is not a conversation to delay. Of course, everyone's health situation is different, so always discuss any changes with your healthcare provider. Mistake number 5: taking long or late-day naps. This is where a great deal of well-meaning advice for seniors quietly causes damage. Listen to your body. Rest when you're tired. As general principles, these are not wrong. But when they translate into long, late-afternoon naps, they often destroy the one thing your brain needs most: deep, consolidated, nighttime sleep. Recent research involving over 1,200 adults, aged 65 and older, found that naps exceeding 60 minutes in duration, or naps taken after 3 p.m., were associated with significantly reduced slow-wave sleep at night, increased nighttime awakenings, and higher rates of next-day cognitive fog compared to those who did not nap or kept naps short and early. The science comes down to adenosine. Adenosine is a chemical compound that builds up in the brain the longer you stay awake, and it is the primary driver of the natural sleepiness you feel in the evening. Researchers call it sleep pressure. When you take a long nap, especially late in the afternoon, you release that adenosine early. By 10 p.m., there is simply not enough sleep pressure built up to pull you into the deep, slow-wave stages your brain depends on. You may fall asleep, but it will be lighter, less restorative, and far more fragmented than your brain requires. The specific guideline from sleep researchers: if you nap, keep it to 20 to 30 minutes and finish it no later than 2 p.m. Set an alarm. Do not allow yourself to drift into a full sleep cycle. A short, well-timed nap recharges energy without cannibalizing the night. If this video is giving you information you have never heard before, this is a good moment to subscribe to Senior Health Decoded. Every week, we publish research-backed health videos built specifically for adults over 60. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. It means you will never miss one. Mistake number 4. Drinking alcohol to help you fall asleep. The Nightcap is one of the oldest and most trusted pre-bed rituals in existence. A glass of wine, a small scotch. For many people over 65, it has been part of the evening for decades, and it genuinely does work in the first half of sleep. Alcohol is a sedative. It shortens the time it takes to fall asleep. The problem begins roughly 2 to 4 hours later. Medical experts agree that as the body metabolizes alcohol during the second half of the night, the sedative effect reverses into a stimulant rebound. Lighter sleep, more frequent awakenings, and dramatically suppressed REM sleep. REM sleep is the stage during which the brain processes emotional memories, consolidates new learning, and performs critical neural repair. When REM is chronically shortened, the consequences accumulate. A large-scale study published in a leading neuroscience journal found that consuming even moderate amounts of alcohol within 3 hours of bedtime reduced REM sleep by an average of 24% compared to non-drinking nights. Over months and years, that compounding REM deficit leaves measurable marks on memory, mood regulation, and cognitive sharpness. For adults over 65, the metabolism of alcohol slows considerably compared to younger years. This means the disruptive window is longer and hits deeper into the night's sleep architecture. What felt like helpful sedation at 40 is a fundamentally different biochemical event at 68. The research-supported adjustment is straightforward. If a glass of wine is meaningful to you, move it at least 3 hours before your intended bedtime. Shifting from a 9 p.m. glass to a 6 p.m. glass with dinner maintains the ritual almost entirely while largely sparing your REM sleep. Mistake number 3, having no consistent sleep schedule, and you can fix this tonight. This is the mistake that surprises people the most because it does not feel like a mistake. It feels like earned freedom. I go to bed when I'm tired. I sleep in on weekends. I'm retired. I can finally rest when I want. But for the aging brain, this flexibility carries a hidden cost that the research is now measuring with precision. Your body runs on a circadian rhythm, an internal 24-hour biological clock that regulates cortisol, melatonin, body temperature, and dozens of other processes. After 65, the strength of this clock signal measurably weakens. The amplitude of the circadian rhythm declines. The brain becomes more sensitive to timing disruption, not less. At the exact age when consistency matters most, many people abandon it entirely. A 2022 clinical study involving older adults tracked sleep regularity using wrist-worn actigraphy devices and found that individuals with irregular sleep-wake schedules defined as more than 90 minutes of variability in bedtime or wake time across the week, had significantly lower scores on cognitive assessments and higher blood markers of neuroinflammation than those with consistent schedules. This was true even when total sleep hours were equal between the two groups. Read that again carefully. The same number of hours slept, but irregular timing alone produced measurably worse brain health outcomes. The mechanism involves what happens when cortisol, melatonin, and core body temperature are knocked out of phase with each other. When you go to bed at 10 p.m. on Monday and 1:30 a.m. on Saturday, you are subjecting your brain to the biological equivalent of weekly transatlantic jet lag. The brain spends energy recalibrating its internal systems rather than spending that energy on memory consolidation and neural maintenance. Here is the fix, and you can start it tonight. Choose a wake time, not a bedtime, a wake time. Pick a specific time tomorrow morning, set your alarm, and get up at that time regardless of when you fell asleep the night before. Then, do the same the morning after that. Within 4 to 7 days, your body will begin generating natural sleep pressure at a predictable hour each evening, and your bedtime will stabilize organically around your wake time minus your target sleep duration. No medication, no expense, just a single consistent morning alarm. Barbara is 68, a retired school librarian from Vermont. For the first 6 decades of her life, her schedule was set by the school calendar. She was up at 6:30 every weekday without fail. When she retired, every day became a weekend. She stayed up late reading, slept in until 9 or 10 a.m., napped some afternoons, and went to bed whenever she felt tired. On paper, she was sleeping close to 8 hours a night. In practice, she was waking up foggy every single morning, reaching for coffee before she could form a coherent sentence, and feeling mentally flat by early afternoon. A conversation with her doctor led her to one simple recommendation: fixed 7 a.m. wake time, every day, no exceptions for 2 weeks. Barbara was skeptical. She tried it anyway. By day 8, she was falling asleep naturally around 10:30 p.m. By the end of week 2, she told her daughter she could not remember the last time she had felt this mentally clear before noon. Her afternoon fog was gone. She was reading in the evenings and actually retaining what she had read. Same woman, same bedroom, same life. One morning alarm. Mistake number 2, eating a large meal within 2 hours of bedtime. This one connects directly to the brain's nightly maintenance cycle, and most people have never been told why it matters beyond the familiar warning about heartburn and acid reflux. When a large meal is consumed close to bedtime, the body redirects significant metabolic resources toward digestion. Core body temperature rises, and core body temperature needs to drop for the brain to initiate and sustain deep sleep. Insulin spikes, gastric activity increases. All of these processes work against the physiological conditions your brain needs to enter slow-wave sleep and stay there. Recent research involving more than 2,000 adults over the age of 60 found that those who consumed their largest meal within 90 minutes of their intended bedtime spent 31% less time in slow-wave sleep and experienced significantly more nighttime awakenings than those who finished eating at least 2.5 hours before bed. That slow-wave sleep deficit matters more than most people realize. Slow-wave sleep is the primary window during which the glymphatic system performs its clearance work, flushing out the metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking hours, including the proteins most directly implicated in neurodegenerative disease. When late evening eating repeatedly shortchanges this stage, the cleanup is left half-finished every single night. The practical guideline is this: aim to finish your last substantial meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. If you sleep at 10 p.m., dinner should be finished by 7 or 7:30 p.m. at the latest. If genuine hunger surfaces close to bed, a small, low-glycemic option, a small handful of walnuts, half a cup of plain Greek yogurt, or a few slices of turkey, provides tryptophan and healthy fats without triggering the metabolic cascade that disrupts deep sleep architecture. Mistake number 1. Using over-the-counter or prescription sleep medications long-term. This is the mistake that needed to come last because it is the most common, the most trusted, and according to a growing and increasingly urgent body of research, the most potentially damaging thing an adult over 65 can do for their long-term brain health. Diphenhydramine. You will find it in Benadryl, Ziz-Quil, Unisom sleep tabs, Tylenol PM, Simply Sleep, and dozens of other products. It is inexpensive. It is available everywhere. It works quickly. And for a large number of adults over 65, it has become a nightly habit that has been quietly building for years. Many people would describe it as completely safe. They bought it at a pharmacy without a prescription. The box says it is a sleep aid. How dangerous could it be? Here is what the research shows. A landmark study published in JAMA Internal Medicine examined pharmaceutical records from more than 3,000 older adults over a 10-year period and found that cumulative use of anticholinergic medications, a broad drug class that includes diphenhydramine, was significantly associated with increased risk of developing dementia. Adults who took these medications for a cumulative total of 3 or more years over the study period had a measurably and substantially elevated risk of an Alzheimer's-type diagnosis compared to non-users, even after controlling for other known risk factors. Diphenhydramine is an anticholinergic drug. Its mechanism of action works by blocking acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that is foundational to memory formation, learning, and overall cognitive function. For a young brain with abundant acetylcholine production, temporary blockage resolves quickly. For a brain over 65, where acetylcholine levels have already declined as a natural part of aging, chronic nightly blockage accelerates a process of cognitive deterioration that the brain has very limited capacity to reverse. And there is more. A large-scale clinical review involving over 1,500 adults over the age of 65 found that regular diphenhydramine use was associated with measurable next-day cognitive impairment, reduced processing speed, working memory deficits, and balance disruption, even among users who reported feeling that they had slept well. The drug creates the subjective feeling of having slept, while simultaneously interfering with the brain activity that makes sleep valuable. Prescription benzodiazepines, medications like Xanax, Valium, Restoril, and Halcion, carry a separate profile of concern. Medical experts and sleep researchers increasingly agree that benzodiazepines suppress both slow-wave and REM sleep, the two most restorative stages. A person using a benzodiazepine is losing consciousness, but is not sleeping in the way the brain requires to consolidate memory, clear metabolic waste, and maintain neural health. Long-term benzodiazepine use in older adults is also consistently associated with elevated fall risk, dependency, and clinically documented memory consolidation deficits. Eleanor is 67, a retired accountant from Michigan. She started taking half a Unisom tablet every night after her husband passed away 4 years ago. She simply could not sleep without it, and taking it felt like a reasonable, responsible way to manage. She did not think of herself as someone who depended on a medication. She was coping. But over those 4 years, her adult children had started noticing things. She repeated stories during phone calls. She occasionally forgot the names of people she had known for 30 years. She sometimes lost her train of thought mid-sentence in a way that was new for her. Eleanor's physician eventually identified the pattern and worked with her on a gradual, medically supervised taper over several weeks. replacing the medication with a consistent sleep schedule, a structured wind-down routine, and a low short-term dose of melatonin as a bridge. Within 3 months, her family said she seemed sharper, more present, more like herself. She still grieved. She still had difficult nights, but her mind was returning. This video is not asking you to stop your medications. If you are currently using any sleep medication, whether over-the-counter or prescribed, do not stop abruptly. Instead, at your very next medical appointment, bring the subject up directly. Ask your doctor about the anticholinergic burden of your current medications. Ask whether cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBTI, might be an appropriate alternative. Multiple clinical trials involving adults over 60 have found that CBTI produces better long-term sleep outcomes than medication, with no side effects and no dependency risk. It is not widely offered because it requires time and effort. But the results are real. Of course, everyone's health situation is different, and any changes to a medication routine should always be discussed with and supervised by your healthcare provider. Action steps. 5 steps. Specific. Implementable starting tonight. Step 1. Choose your wake time and set it right now. Before this video ends, open your phone and set an alarm for the same time tomorrow morning, and the same time every morning after that, weekends included. This single action is the foundation of every other sleep improvement you will make. Give it 7 days without exception. Step 2. Implement a 90-minute screen-free window before bed. No phone, no tablet, no laptop. Television with a sleep timer set to 30 minutes or less is acceptable if needed. Use that window for a physical book, light stretching, or quiet conversation. The discomfort passes within a few days. Step 3, move your last meal and your last glass of wine to at least 2 to 3 hours before sleep. If your target bedtime is 10 p.m., dinner ends by 7:30 p.m. If you drink alcohol, move it to dinner rather than a pre-bed ritual. Same enjoyment. Dramatically less disruption to your sleep architecture. Step 4. If you snore heavily, wake consistently unrefreshed, or have been told you stop breathing at night, schedule an appointment to discuss a sleep study. This is not a minor inconvenience to manage. Undiagnosed sleep apnea in adults over 65 may be one of the most significant and reversible contributors to cognitive decline. It is fully treatable. The improvement, as Harold found, can be life-changing. Step 5. If you use a sleep aid regularly, particularly any product containing diphenhydramine, put this on your agenda for your very next doctor's appointment. Ask specifically about anticholinergic burden. Ask about CBT1. Come prepared with the question. You may not get a proactive conversation about this unless you start it yourself. Which of these 8 mistakes hit closest to home for you? Are you a late-night screen user? A long napper? Someone who relies on a sleep aid most nights? Or all 3? Tell us in the comments, honestly, without judgment. This community has helped more people make changes than any single video ever could. And if someone in your life is making any of these mistakes, please share this video with them. It might genuinely matter more than you know.